Hey everybody, this is Khara. I have my wonderful colleague and friend Alex, and I wanted to do a video. So he's here with me. We're going to kind of just go into this, but I want you to know why I asked Alex to come on this video. I was talking to my students, and they were talking about countertransference and transference and how certain clients just don't vibe well. And I remembered hearing that sometimes we don't like what we see in others because it reminds us of ourselves. So
Correct.
this is Alex's domain. Alex, I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to talk about this. I want my students to be able to see this video. So yes, let's jump in.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is my jam. I'm huge union, and I love to talk about shadow work. And so whenever shadow work comes up, both in clients and clinician, in supervision, I like to dive in. And I always ask questions about, is this really about the client or is this really about you? And how is
Yes.
this, I always use that word charged. Am I having a charged reaction? Am I having a charged, like somatic feeling when they talk about certain things? And if that's the case, it's time for me to check in with myself to see,
Right.
I use that term. That's when I use that term, not my chicken, which I will share
Right.
that and share that with the class and share it with you as well. Because I think the not my chicken, is this my chicken or is this not my chicken? It really puts into perspective, am I projecting my unresolved issues onto the client? And that's why I'm having this charged emotion, whether it be super excited or whether it be super angry or frustrated or I don't want to see this client anymore, because every time I see them, it brings up stuff about me that I haven't dealt with, and so it charges me. And so it's very important, especially when we're working with our clients, that we're very mindful that aside from being a professional holding space for them, we are still human.
Right.
Before our MA, LPC, LAC, ATP, LMNOPs, our names, before, I have all of those acronyms before, after my name, I'm first Alex. I'm first human. And we cannot forget that human component a part of us. I am a
Right.
professional, but I'm also human. So therefore, I have to be very mindful in my humanness that my stuff will come up. And I can't deny that. I have to
Mhm.
honor it and tend to it as well. So
Right.
yeah, this is my jam.
So for folks who haven't heard the chicken story, I feel like you need to give like a quick
Yes.
little overview of what
Yes.
this is. This
So
is
yes,
you.
the chicken story happened when I first started in this field a couple of years ago. I had a client who came in before I was an LPC and an LAC. I was a CAC 3, a bachelor's CAC 3, and so I was doing anger management. And so I had a client that chain of stores referred him to me because he was very aggressive, had anger issues,
Mm.
and so they thought that he needed to do some anger management classes, and they referred him to do 24 individual sessions. He had been written up because he had gone off on elderly clients specifically. So he worked in the deli area frying chicken. So he would go in at, let's say, 10 o'clock, and he would fry chicken in the morning for the lunch hour and chicken for the evening packages. You can take your fried chicken home for dinner. Well, he said around Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they were around elderly residential home. They would come with the bus and bring the elderly with their walkers and so forth to go do their shopping from the assisted living home. He said, and I hated working with them because every time they'd come, they want a piece of cheese, they would want to try, a piece of ham, and they would want to try every little piece of whatever they can try, but they would never buy anything. And so in the background, I would be frying the chicken, and the fryer would go off, beep 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 beep, and I couldn't tend to the chicken because customer service is priority. Customer is always right. That was our priority. So then the chicken would burn, and
Mm.
I would get pissed off and angry, he said, because every time I would put 6 pieces of chicken, I had to tend to them, and they would not leave me alone. Like I would say, can you give me a minute? No, young man, we're not done with you. Can I have another piece of this ham? Can I try of this? So he was trying to be respectful, and he became very impatient. And finally, after several weeks of doing this, he went off and cursed at them. Like, I don't
Mm.
understand what you guys are. And he just started yelling at them. They called the manager. They complained. He got a warning. After the third time, he got a write up. He got 2 write ups and then the warning. And that's how he got sent to me. And so when he got sent to me, it was anger management. He goes, I don't have anger problems. I have, I can't tolerate people who can't make their mind up. And I feel like they just do this to exploit. And, he's just going off telling me all of his narratives. And I said, listen, I want to ask you something. I said, did you lose hours at work because of that chicken that burned? No. Did they take money out of your check? No, that's illegal. Did they cut your hours? No. So you are getting worked up, bent out of shape, mentally, emotionally, frustrated over something that does not belong to you. That is not your chicken. Kroger has funding for loss prevention, for things that burn, things that, that rot. They have that funding. So you are getting all worked up, all pissed off, all angry, mentally, emotionally, physically over something that doesn't belong to you. That's not your chicken. That's how it came up.
Yeah, and then you use that as a gauge, right? To check in.
Yeah, and so it's like, so I said, so next time you see them, do a chicken check-in. He's like, do a chicken check-in. Am I getting upset? Yes. Why am I getting upset? I'm getting upset and overworked over something that doesn't belong to me. I don't need to hold on to that. So therefore, he started realizing I am projecting. I am getting overwhelmed, frustrated over something that doesn't belong to me. And then I said, furthermore, let's go underneath that impatience. What does that, when you feel charged when you see them, what area in your life have you not dealt with that this is a souvenir? Yep. And he said, my mother. Let's talk about that. And so see, now that's your chicken. That is your stuff. When you see somebody, when you see the elderly, always tell you, well, my mom tends to beat around the bush and not tell me exactly what she wants. She tells me 5 or 6 things. And so it gets me frustrated because I feel like she makes me feel like I'm stupid. There we go. So what's going on is what's in your shadow. It's that bad, that ugly stuff that you don't want to deal with, that you don't want to go off on your mom. You don't want to get angry. You don't want to be disrespectful. That's your shadow. You suppress that. You put that away because it's your mom. But when you see this elderly person come to you and act in the same way, that stuff from your shadow comes up and it's charged. And then you have a reaction. You're projecting now. And so that's your shadow countertransference. That's that frustration and your anger being projected onto these elderly. But it came up through the chicken.
I love that. And I think it's relevant to our audience here, which is potentially green clinicians who are like, oh my gosh, what do I do about this? So let's say they have enough awareness to recognize dread, or maybe they start yawning. This came up in our class of sometimes we yawn because we're just so in tune with what they're saying that we just don't breathe well. But maybe we feel exhausted after seeing our client because they are offering so much that would be a projection or reminds us of someone else. What would you say to these clinicians? What's their next step?
Well, I would say I actually do that. I like to do that chicken check-in. It's very funny, but it's true. I like to do a chicken check-in where when I'm done with the client and I'm feeling like I normally have a space of, now with COVID, I have 15, 20 minutes to, just between clients to be able to breathe, to take just clear out the air and whatnot. And as you know, I'm huge on candles.
Water.
Exactly. Water, just be able, I'm very mindful now of my space. And so what I tend to do is I mentally, emotionally, and sometimes I feel charged physically. Hey, what's going on? That's when I kind of use that term with my clinicians, do a chicken check-in. Is this mine, or am I holding on something that the client dumped, or am I having a visceral somatic reaction to something that was brought into the session that brought up my stuff? Because as I'm holding and tending space to the individual before me, I have to be mindful that I'm human, I'm present too. And so whatever gets stirred up in this space can trigger something in here. And so then I do a check-in to see okay, what's going on? I'll give you an example. I was doing EMDR with one of my clients, a Las Vegas shooting victim. He was a survivor, and he had done an EMDR session. And he was talking about one of the things that he said is he remembers when part of the air conditioning unit would turn on, and whenever the air conditioning unit would turn on at his work, you know how the air passes by your ear, and he says that rush of air reminds him of the bullets that were passing his ear during the shooting, and so he was struggling with that somatic reaction. And he did something. I remember that he did this thing with his hand like this when he was talking about the wind, and he did this gesture physically with his hand. And when he did this, this was my grandfather's way of threatening us.
I was gonna say, this is like a type A person saying, do it now.
My grandpa would say something, if you don't do this right now, God be my witness, I will beat you until tomorrow. And I remember he would do this. And I remember when he was doing this with his hands, my mind went to grandpa, like,
yeah.
oh gosh. And I was, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was listening to him, but my mind immediately for like a millisecond went, grandpa, right? And so everything was done. And, session was done, everything was good, but that stayed in my back burner, and so in my subconscious. And when the client was gone, I felt this urge after session to be like, oh my God, I want to call my mom, because it was my dad's mom, my mom's dad. And so as I was done, I was like, what, who? I'm feeling grief. And I'm feeling grief. And I was like, why am I feeling this? What's going on? I was like, I was not in the Las Vegas. I did the chicken. I was not in the Las Vegas shooting. What is going on? And so finally I was like, I feel grief. About who though? About who? My mental, emotional, physical. I do my 5 domains check-in. And I started realizing, oh, this gesture. Oh, right. That's the charge. Because I remember when I cut myself, I even have when I cut myself, I got a scar. My grandpa had asked me not to play by the semi, the back of the semi. He had a farm and he would load all the vegetables up. And I would constantly, he had like a channel of water next to the semi, and I would swing the door open and let go and fall into the water. Well, in one of those, I cut myself flaring my arms, and my grandpa came out yelling, I told you so many times.
With the gesture.
My mind went there. And so I was like, oh, body keeps score, right? It's like my body's remembering this little reaction from a client that had nothing to do with the client, had nothing to do with the session. It was something from the past when I got in trouble with my grandpa. I think that was the one time that I really got scolded by him because I disobeyed him. I was probably like 11. I remember him coming at me, yelling at me like this. I automatically, my brain, it went to the memory part of the brain and retracted that. And I had a reaction to it. And it was just the shadow countertransfer. And the client just brought it up without me, unbeknownst to me. And I had a reaction to it.
Right, because you're human, as you said.
You're human. Yeah, I can't deny the fact that I'm human, and my body's going to react to the verbal and nonverbal cues that are connected emotionally to that part that I haven't dealt with, or that I did deal with, but I don't want to remember because it was so painful. And so that's normal. We're not crazy. We are not less human. We are not insane. We're not incompetent, because that's where our inner critic starts coming up. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? No. This is part of being human in this profession.
Right. And I think what you're saying is like, be curious about it, be gentle with yourself. I love the suggestion of having some time between clients to literally, because you and I are both movement people, so like literally shake it off. Like, okay, I need to get that out of my system and prepare for the next client. Do you think there's ever a time where sharing that we've been triggered is helpful to the client, for them to know, like, if we can't control it, or it's like, oh God, it's in the room with us, like, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Specifically, I think, I've just recently, I've been dealing with a lot of grief, me personally, and Khara, you know that. I've had COVID has taken a hit on my family. 6 individuals have died in my family. And so I'm very mindful of grief. Grief is very present with me, very present. And so because of grief being present in my life, my clients know, because I had to counsel a lot of sessions or had to move them around because of grief. My office is real good at letting them know, hey, they had a family emergencies. And I let my clients know, hey, somebody's in, when my dad was in the hospital because of COVID, I let my clients know, hey, if I get a phone call, I had to step away, there's a family stuff, I let them know to a certain extent.
Right.
So they know, not full details, but they know that something's going on. Does that make sense? And so
Right.
therefore, when it comes up, I'm very mindful, and I share this a lot in addiction counseling skills that I teach at Metro. You know, when you are holding space for individual, go back to the original, what I said in the beginning, I'm still human. I'm still human, and
Mhm.
I'm going to have to be mindful. And so there are times where I'm holding space and I'm having somatic reactions where my stomach is growling, where I'm feeling like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I said,
Mm.
I feel it, and I acknowledge it. Does that make sense? Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm having I'm having a physical reaction. It's like, I know I feel it too. So it validates the client's.
Yes.
It's like, it's almost, and I don't mean to be mystical, but it almost validates the sacred space. Does that make sense? I'm sitting with you, and as you are crying and being open and vulnerable, I'm holding space, but also having a human connection with you, somatically,
Right.
human connection with you was as I sigh with you, like when they're crying, and I'm like,
Breathe. Yeah.
yeah. And they like, I feel that, and I use a lot of nonverbals. Like, when they're crying or breaking down, and they take a minute to blow their nose, I put my hand on my chest to be like,
Mm.
I
Okay.
feel that. And that nonverbal gestures acknowledges the sacredness of the moment, the vulnerability of the moment, and that I'm here. I
Yeah.
feel it too. I feel that energy. Or just do that, you know, I do a lot of nonverbals, but my clients know me so well. You know me, Khara. They know me so well that they know with my nonverbals I'm here. And there's sometimes, especially when I'm doing somatic EMDR, that I'm like, I feel that. We feel that. You feel that? They're like, yeah, okay. I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Well, and
What
it's so
am
powerful for us to witness that and also to name it sometimes. Like you're making me think of times where my client didn't notice that they were shaking their leg or that, they were holding their chest or their throat or some sort of comforting gesture they didn't even know. But one story in particular that's coming up as you were sharing is I have a client who hasn't been able to cry for years, like just like somehow it's been switched off. They've lost lots of people in their life, they've had tragedies, and they haven't been able to express that. And we were doing a session which had some bilateral, not quite EMDR because they were too what's the word, too charged maybe for that. And there was a point where I could just feel the tears, like I felt them behind my eyes, and I named it out loud. I was like, man, I really have this urge to cry from something you just shared, and it's just kind of sitting here behind my eyes. And they're like, oh, that's mine. Because I was like, I'm not upset. And they're like, that's mine. And I was like, like I just got goosebumps. Like, how
yeah,
powerful is that for them to say, those are my tears. I can't cry, but you're going to hold them for me.
yeah.
And I
You know,
just named that.
and I love that you're saying that, because one of my clients, she said, I feel like when I come to counseling, you're a conduit for me to come together. It's like you help me connect my thoughts, my emotions, and who I am all together. I was like, no, I don't do that. I just hold space. You allow yourself to do that work. But sometimes, like you said, they don't have the words, the safe space to be, because we're so busy doing that we don't know how to be. So as clinicians, we hold space for them to be congruent, be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, be open, allow themselves to emote without being judged. And so sometimes we have to verbalize it for them,
Yep. And
be
just
like,
model that it's okay, right? And like, oh, you
okay,
can, I can't tell you how many people have apologized for crying. And I'm like, why are you apologizing for crying? Like, this is what we do. If I didn't like crying, I wouldn't be a therapist. I think that's true for you too, Alex. So it's like, I think just providing that safe space, but also sometimes verbalizing it or just holding or naming it, and then they can own it. Sometimes they don't want to own it until it's like, oh, that led to this thought for you. I think, come and check that out. Is that true? Yes. Okay. Now we're taking a deeper dive. Like, it's where this work gets really meaningful.
yeah. And it's very, and I absolutely, just to piggyback on what you said, I absolutely love I facilitate a men's trauma group on Saturday mornings, and I've been doing that now for 2 years. And it's men who have been through traumatic events. And I use the Greek definition of trauma, which is wounding, especially in this group. It's like, how have we been wounded within our 5 domains? And this group is to be able to lean into that discomfort And, at first there's a lot of people who are very resistant. I have everything from DOC, probation, domestic violence offenders. I have everything in there. And so people who are just, in recovery. And so one of the things that shows up consistently is when you model as a clinician holding space, vulnerability, other clients pick up on it, and then they can mentor new people coming in. And I see that dynamic in the group where I have 13 group members, and as they're present, you start realizing the seniors or the seasoned group members start realizing, hey, bro, that sounds like, this, I hear your anger, but remember, anger is a secondary emotion. What is the primary emotion?
I
I'm
love
listening,
that.
and I was like, yes, because, when I get like you are right now, breathing, your face is red and upset, it lets me know somebody has really wounded me on a deep level. So this is the reaction I'm having. Have you ever thought about what? Because I can feel your pain, and I'm hearing them as like, oh, yes, beautiful. I hear you, and I remember. Alex, do you remember when I first came in and I was like that? I sure do. And what was your emotion? He says, betrayal. Betrayal does that to me. And then he goes, no, it's not betrayal. So do an inventory of emotions. Which one is it that's bringing up? And then finally, another client said, for me, it's hurt. When I feel hurt, like hurt on a like love hurt, because there's hurt like I cut myself, but then there's hurt like love hurt, betrayal. That's like tears me. And he's like, I think that's the one. I think that's the one. Hey, we've been there, buddy. And so you hear that validate when you model that for clients. I use the word download it, and then they install it. And so therefore, when they see it in other people, they can call it out and share it.
Right.
And hold space for it. So
I love that.
Definitely, yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful. That's why I say, as clinicians, it's almost like social learning. We're teaching and holding space for clients so that they can continue doing this outside, because therapy doesn't happen in here; it happens out there. So.
True. It's true. That's where that planting seeds analogy comes back to me. It's
right.
like we're starting something and they get to go forward with it. We don't get always to see the outcomes, but we get to see some of those beautiful moments when they share with others, or they become I have clients who are like the champions of therapy, or like telling everyone to do therapy. I'm like, okay, I guess that's the legacy. Thank you, I think.
And one of the things also that I also, going back to that graceful piece, I want to piggyback on is that, if it does come up and you haven't dealt with it, be graceful with yourself. So now it's maybe you didn't have the ego strength, or you weren't ready to deal with it back then. Here it is again. Let's have a conversation with that discomfort. Let's dig in. Let's sit with that anxiety. Let's I use the practice of personification, or if you want to use that Gestalt theory behind it, like let's bring it to the chair. Let's have a conversation with that fear. What are you bringing? And I always tell clients, and I use this for myself as well. When anxiety shows up, have a conversation with it. What is, I in the past, I didn't want to deal with you. And now you're showing up through other different areas.
Right.
And so now I'm going to deal with you. What's going on? What is this, Alex? What's going on? Keeping in mind that emotions are bringing up information about me, from me, by me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like this. I'll share this with you. Like when I was in the field in 2008, I had just finished my undergrad, and I had gotten my CAC3, and I was doing therapy, substance abuse groups and DUI therapy. And I had terminated a relationship, and I was like, I'm done. I'm over it. Clean cut, get your stuff, get the hell out. I'm not going to grieve. I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to work. So I don't have to feel. And so I just started, working, and I was doing DBT group back then. And I remember I was like, the rational mind, the emotional mind, we need to stay in that wise mind. And then next thing you know, it's almost like synchronicity, things happening, clients coming in. So why are you here? I'm here because I got a DUI and I was emotionally dysregulated. What led to the DUI? My wife left me, break up. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like everything I don't want to deal with. It's like everybody's showing up to the table with it. It's like, I don't want to deal with breakups. I don't want to deal with divorces. I don't want to deal with heartache. Why are you here? Oh, I got in a fight with my girlfriend because she said she was going to leave me, and I said, if it's not me, it's nobody else. Oh, you got a DV charge. Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this showing up now?
Can't ignore it. Yep.
It
Yeah.
will not. Can I get a can of Raid, please? Spray this away. And it's like, to a certain extent, when I was doing my therapy, I remember I saw my therapist and I said, all of these damn people are showing up with the same shit, different client. I'm sick and tired. And obviously I went to the deaf union therapist, like, so give a microphone to that emotion that's coming up, that anger. What is it saying about you? And I remember looking at him, I was like, and I verbalized this. I remember this with my therapist back then. I said, if I don't deal with my crap, who the hell do you think you are to confront me with it? And he goes, your therapist. And you know what? This is exactly, Alex, what you're doing. This is why it's showing, and that's shadow countertransference. You're not dealing with your grief. You're not dealing with your breakup. And so it's going to show up through the people you work with, and it's going to charge you. And so unless you deal with it, it's going to dominate, dysregulate, hinder, block the work that you are going to do. So it's almost like an invitation for you to clean house.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because I actually see it as a gift sometimes when that parallel process is happening where we've had something in our personal life and I think the running joke for some of us is like, I'd rather focus on other people's stuff than my own stuff. So then they come in the room and it's like, oh, well, now both of our stuff's in the room because your stuff parallels my stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like there have been times where I could show so much more compassion for the client going through that stuff than myself. And then it made me feel more gentle towards myself, right? That self-compassion was able to come up because I could do that for them. So that's where I almost see it as a gift when we're stubbornly like, nope, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to think about it. It's like, oh, but now I have to, even though I'm going to make sure it's still mostly about the client. Like I'm also going to find those words I say to them, words I hear myself.
And to further add to that, I will venture to say it will never go away. It doesn't matter, that was in 2008, even now in 2021, I'm still dealing with a lot of stuff. Like it's the constant evolution. I call it, what is it? The tension of opposites. As we grow, we're still gonna have more work to do. As we evolve, there's still gonna have, we're just a constant onion. Like there's different layers as we grow and develop. There's still going to be stuff that's going to come up. Now it's like I'm on a whole different level of skill set and training. And now it's like now I do supervision with clinicians, and I was like, I'm telling them, what does that say about you? And then I'm telling myself, okay, now my check.
Yeah.
Check in, because you're also going through this on a different level. And I'm hearing myself. I'm like, oh God, there it is. There it is. That's my stuff. And so I need to be grateful and say, okay. And one of my clinicians says, does this ever go away? I'm like, no, this is why it's so important for self-care.
Yep. Do the work and be gentle.
Do the work, therapy, do consultation, do clinical supervision, do it, because the more aware, you can only take your clients as far as you've gone.
There it is.
You only take your clients as far as you've gone. If I have not dealt with grief, how am I going to feel competent enough to hold space for you that's going through grief?
Right. Exactly.
I haven't dealt with a breakup. If I haven't dealt with my anxiety and you come to me with anxiety, how am I going to hold space for you if I don't know how to, it's almost like that airplane analogy. Yeah, let me put them, if in case of air pressure, let me put your mask off as I pass out. Yeah, no, I first have to put it on me and then I'll put it on you. So it's almost like you said, it's an invitation to be gentle, be kind, and remember, we are human.
Yes. I love this. I hope that all of our viewers can take this in, because I know that we're never done learning. And so, to kind of summarize the things we've talked about for our viewers, have that time for self-care, make sure your clients aren't back to back, find the times that it's important to name it out loud. Sometimes that can be a teaching moment or a compassion moment with your client, and you can only take them as far as you've done the work. I think that's a wonderful place to end, of like, if you haven't done the work, you can't do this with other people. So we're continuing to grow and change.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And just be mindful that there was an analogy when I went to, I'm getting my PhD in one of the classes, they verbalized, actually they acted out Carl Jung saying that the closer you get to wanting to know what's behind the curtain, the further the curtain goes. It's like, I'm getting closer to the curtain. I want to look, and then it moves further, and then it moves further. And they did that analogy to that metaphor, that the further you go along in your life and your career, the further you have to grow. So the curtain, how we always want to know what's behind the curtain, almost like the Wizard of Oz. I want to know what's behind the curtain. It's gonna challenge you to grow. So understand that all of this situation that you're going through is the curtain inviting you to go further in your life, further in your career, further in your development. So be gentle, then just accept that this is part of being a clinician.
Exactly. I'm so glad we had this candid conversation, and I appreciate all of your wisdom and your stories. And I just know that the people who view this video are going to get something out of it. So if nothing else, do your chicken check-in, everyone. That's what this is. I think I'm going to call the video that, so that they're like, what is this? Yep, your chicken check-in. And, let's keep going. Let's keep doing what we're doing and give ourselves some grace, because we're human and we're still making some powerful things happen with our clients. So stay tuned for more videos, everyone. Thank you again, Alex, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.